Welcome, friends, to the Tomsic analysis election night forecasting slash election coverage. We're going to be here as long as I can do it. I tried to get people to help on this election eve, and Ashley, who you know as a co host of mine, was unable to do it. Thank you, Ashley. My friend Tom, who I asked, cannot do it. And so others all turned me down, and it was left to me. Now, I did find some people. These two gentlemen, Frank and Hank, are poll workers. I found them down at where I vote. They, had nothing else to do. They were wandering around. So I invited them to be a part of this live stream. Thank you, Frank and Hank. I don't know how much help they will be. I found very early on that they weren't going to be very good with computers, thinking, talking, but they sure can eat, just to let you know. So welcome. It is a live stream. We're going to turn that on. And I'm so glad you can join me tonight. Those of you that took the bait here and came onto this channel. Hey, listen, we're known for really telling the truth. And I have gotten some heat in recent times. A lot of folks don't like my viewpoints or analysis, commentary, looks. What else can I say? I'm fighting allergies, and I believe that's because of the unusual weather we've had, which here in southwestern Pennsylvania is dry, drier, and driest. A lot of particles in the air. I'm struggling, but I'm doing this live stream for you. So that you know, and if you've never met me, I am a political atheist. I do have opinions, and I do have things I believe strongly in elections and in candidates. I do make fun of these two particular candidates, but I am trying to be as unbiased as I can tonight and not get too far off the rails and down a rabbit hole on issues that I really care about. But I may do that, and I might just digress. Frank and Hank, I think, are good for the night. It was a wild day. I went to vote, and there wasn't anybody there. My precinct added 4 more machines, a few more poll workers, and God, thank you so much. There weren't any people outside with signs or handouts tripping over each other to get you to vote for their candidate. I give them the look. And that usually satisfies their interest in me. But this is going to be an election year to remember. I'm told that this is the most important election in history. Now, if you watch any of my videos, and I suggest if you have not done so, do so. And when you do it, please like, subscribe, and share those videos. You'll find that I am a political atheist. You'll find I also have some very strong opinions, and I'm very controversial on a lot of topics, which contradicts many people I know. As a conservative Christian, people automatically think, and if I wear this shirt, then I'm sort of a right-wing extremist somehow. And they figure they know how I will vote. The left wing probably looks at me as that as well. Fooling them both, I'm neither, because I am a political atheist. And I believe anybody running for just about any office today, especially the high office, is nothing more than a sociopath and a psychopath. I take that quote from the famous Gerald Celente, the famous trends researcher. You can find him on the internet. He has his own show. He has a magazine, and he's very well known, very accurate on his trends that he predicts. And I enjoy people like that put work and thought into what they believe. And isn't that what this election is about? What do you believe? And I can tell you through my research, experience, gut feeling, discernment, so to speak, that most people don't have a clue who these people are that have put their names up on the candidacy ledger for either party, for both parties. And I don't believe, in the big scheme of things, that there's a lot of difference to be made here. And I did a video about that. Trump or Harris, does it really matter? And I went into some detail on that video to explain why I think that, why I know that. There is historic precedence for it. So what this election really comes down to is what you really believe these people are going to do for you, and for the country, but really for you. I would say this, that just about anything that would be controversial for either candidate to go down and do. A good example will be immigration. I believe Donald Trump has said that he will have the largest deportation of people in history. Now, I can tell you, and other legal experts have told me that that's going to be a very difficult task. You might think it's not, maybe, but that will be challenged in court for years. So right off the bat, one of the big items, the big brass rings that people are hoping for, may not be what they think it is. You see, the system in place today is a disaster to begin with. How we got here and how we actually ended up with these two candidates. In fact, before I came in, a friend of mine has a business right down the street, Greg, and he pulled up in his truck and he said, "How did we get here?" And I've never, ever talked politics with him. I don't really talk politics with a lot of people. I might discuss the political system, but I don't discuss politics. I don't pick sides. I'm a political atheist, right? And he said, "Man, two winners here." What he really said was two losers. And I'm not going to disagree with it. I'm not going to be that guy and say, well, they're losers. Now, obviously, they're in pretty high positions to be losers. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best, most qualified people for the job. A lot of people will argue with me about that. Let's be honest. What honest person would go into politics? Because ultimately here we know that that each political party are influenced by many times the same donors and lenders and groups behind the scenes. Okay? And some are specific for Democrats, some are specific for Republicans, but money's poured in, and me and you are left out. This is well known. You know, a congressman, especially a new congressman, gets elected. He's told you he's going to stop immigration. He's told you he's going to do X, Y, and Z. He told you this as possibly a junior congressman going into the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. Most likely he's getting coffee for everybody else. And him and many like him have to go across the street to a building. On the one side of the building is the Republicans. On the left side of the building is the Democrats, and their offices there with phones. And they get on the phone, and for large parts of the day, they call donors, starting as early as day 3 of them being elected and put into office. I've heard it was as early as day 3, or at least shown the ropes. See, this is how it works. And the other part of this, as I look here, the House and the Senate. Who's going to get elected there? Who will control the House? Who will control the Senate? By what majority? See, we want, and I digress here, we want sometimes to look at a dictator. I'm using that term only to prove a point. We think that somebody's going to come in and just start changing things today. I found out, and I think it was Barack Obama that said this after he was out of office. He said, people don't realize how little power the president really has. And I've heard this from other people, from other presidents in the past. They are a front man for like I said, a lot of different groups, organizations, intergovernmental groups, the deep state, bad or good, the permanent government, outside interests in this world, other countries. So, without bumming you out, I wanted to give you a rundown to see where I stand on this before we go forward here. I don't know how long I'll be here tonight. I don't know when they're going to call the election. I do know if you want to email me, and I won't answer it today, so you can, get me on the live stream here. And I didn't even put the live stream up, so there it is. You can email me to talk to me, answer a question, or maybe give me some info you have, maybe some insight, maybe a topic you want me to cover. But that email address is David_truthmatters@yahoo.com. Once again, my email, David_truthmatters, plural, @yahoo.com. Love to hear from you. Of course, comment in the comments section. What I'm hoping here is that people will come in and just relax, because I have one of the major stations on my TV over there, no sound, of course. I got a laptop with some info here. And, the polls closed, and I think the first poll closed at 7 o'clock. That was Georgia. Okay? Then you have, these are swing states I'm going to be talking about, or important states. Arizona closes at 9, Nevada at 9, North Carolina 7:30, Wisconsin at 9, Michigan at 8. Okay, so there you go. That's when the polls close, and they can't count votes or tell you they're counting votes until the polls close. So right off the bat, we have 270 votes, or electoral college votes, needed for either candidate to reach to win this election. I'm not a fan of electoral college anymore. I once was, and I know the problem behind it, or the issue behind it, was to kind of even it out. The big cities had all the votes. Kind of contradicts one vote, one person, doesn't it? No matter where you're at, your vote should count, of course. But it should be, and I think one day maybe it will be again, total vote count. That's true nature. I mean, you're weighing people, big states against little states. Well, even though you think it's fair because the big state doesn't get doesn't get the same attention as a little state. Either way, the big state's always going to put more of a punch into the final number. California, these key swing states, the big ticket items that the candidates go to most of the time. How many times are you going to go to Iowa as a candidate? How many times are you going to go to Nebraska? You're not. So is that really representing them? So there has to be a conversation anyway. And I know that there's probably a lot of people that would say the same thing. Okay, so, if you want to comment, what exactly do you think is going to happen here if people feel that the election was mishandled? Now, there's been a lot of talk, and I mean a lot of talk, on the fact that National Guard troops had to be called out in certain states. I know that we've had we've had a lot of people, excuse me, it's my phone, it's just me. We've had a lot of people that uh, really have gone out on a limb here to promote their candidates. We've had people in this town that had signs as big as billboards for a particular candidate. I think it's out of hand myself. What do you think? I mean, ultimately, anybody that has ever voted always has the hopes their candidate's going to win big. I'm not sure how this will go. You know, it's early on. I think probably Trump's going to win North Carolina. I think that was a shoe-in. We have a bunch of House seats up. Democrats have an edge on that, I believe. Again, these are important races. Many people don't look at it that way. And I think those of us who have, and I'm going to try to get the chat running here, so hold on, folks. Those of us who have been in, seen elections come and go, you know, really it's very seldom ever what we think it's going to be. At least it was for me, except for basically the Donald Trump, Joe Biden race. That was interesting. Now I know a lot of people thought that that race was fixed, and I'm not going to get into this stuff here. I'm not, because again, even if I had information, no one would believe it either way. This is the whole issue with trying to explain the truth to people. I have information, a lot of it, that contradicts a lot of people and their beliefs. But I might as well be talking to this pen. Might as well be talking to Frank and Hank, because ultimately nobody wants to break their position. And here's the thing, and I can't find my, I can't find anything on here. It's Restream. I don't know what's going on. I really don't. Any rate, I want to get some people talking. Here we go. I think I'm in. Yep, I'm in. Chat is up. Okay, chat is up. I think we can go. I'm going to put a message out there. And we're going to hopefully get some people calling in. Hopefully this works. If I know how to spell. Okay, so I'm out. I'm in. If you have a comment, please comment. The stream is up. Hopefully it works for you. At any rate, so tell me what you think. Tell me who you think's going to win. Don't just say because God told you. I've been told that too. I'm sorry that doesn't go here. And we're going to talk a little about that tonight. As a Christian, I cringe when people think that the whole world shuts down because of the presidential election here. Let me give you a tip. All the other 180, whatever number of nations, they do not shut down. Yeah, they keep an eye on it. They look. And they may have a preference. And I know there's been news articles that make it seem like A or B. They kind of already know what will happen if A gets elected or B gets elected. They know. It's not really rocket science. Okay, so we think that this is the most important election in the world. It becomes a less and less an important election every 4 years for the world. Understand that. And until you understand that, you're going to live in this bubble here, the American dream bubble, the mythology of America bubble. The world centers around us. We're the cat's meow. They need us, and they better listen to us because we're wise, and we're rich, and we're powerful. Maybe 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. Not sure that's true today. And, friend of mine, Jane. Hi, Jane. Her voting district was crowded at 7 a.m. I believe that's up north of us in Sewickley. So thank you for Jane for letting me know. Again, depends on which precincts you're at and how they have them set up. You could be very, very crowded. Could be a long wait. I was fortunate. We went in and out. Boom, boom. I was there. Boom. Giving them the look. You know the look. Don't mess with me today. Anyway, so let me know who you think is going to win and why. Again, I digressed there a little, but we're going to go down some of these rabbit holes today because we got time. I got time to go down the rabbit hole that I don't go on regular videos. And by the way, Thursday live stream's canceled because this one is going live today. So no Thursday live stream for those of you waiting for my famous Thursday live stream that I usually screw up. By the way, if you know somebody who's very skilled at technology, like using OBS and Restream, digital stuff, setting up equipment, then please let me know. Send them to me because I'm clueless. I'm good at certain things, but as you can see today, okay, she waited 30 minutes and has no idea who's going to win. You know, the polls are all over the place, depending on who you talk to, which poll it is. If it's Fox News, it's 390 whatever votes to 0. I mean, this is what you get today. This is why you can't trust the mainstream media. I came on, and again, there are a lot of new people, hopefully, you know, you understand that the mainstream media is not there for you. That they're bought and paid for, in many ways, by an ideology, a certain candidate. CNN, NBC, you're looking at more left-wing ideology. And depends on CBS. I mean, depends on who it is. But Fox News is so far right-wing, you need tickets to get there. See, I was a Fox News fanboy. I watched day and night for years. Day and night. I was brainwashed. Then one day I realized, the Lord came to me and said, David, what are you doing? You're wasting your life. And I realized then that I was dealing with the shills, okay? Ideological shills, and many of them in skirts so far up there that you got to say, how do you get on television? Of course, that's part of it, okay? Yeah, Jane, you're right. We are in the state that decides the journey. So Pennsylvania is one of the key states this year. And I don't know where it's going to go. I don't, and I'll be honest with you, Jane, anybody else listening, I don't want to try to predict, because you're going to get lynched either way. Okay. And I really don't want to get lynched. I don't want to get in arguments with people, what have you. So, get on the chat here, folks, and see what's going on. Let me know what you think. Okay, so back to this whole religious thing. It's important to understand that it's good that you put your faith in, and I do, into what I decide and my understanding of things. I don't deceive myself as to thinking that and this is maybe part of the issue, and I talked about this on my 3-part series, Religion and Politics. You see, we tend to get and we tend to build up our viewpoint of who we are. And in the case of the United States, who the United States is, and we truly believe that, as Ronald Reagan said, we're that shining city on a hill. And people still believe that we stand for righteousness and a lot of things. And I've tried to be nice and say, well, that's, because I don't believe that. And if you do, I don't know what else to say. I mean, I was going to sell you swampland, but I would feel bad to try to do that because, yeah, I'm kind of a little down on this. Because in the big scheme of things, the reason we think we're so great, and because we're some ordained by God, and they go back to the people that came over on the boat, first of all, in our founding fathers. Not all of them were Christians, and not all of them that wrote the constitutions were either. And there's a lot of really strange things. Ben Franklin was no saint. Okay, we don't want to look at that. We look at God led them. Did God lead them to not long after we started to expand west, and even here in the east, kill Indians, kill American natives to this land, steal and pillage? No one wants to hear that. Right off the bat, that you're erased. You're done. See, in my book, you're done. You see, because your foundation that you said was so fantastic just got erased. Got negated is the word I'm looking for. Negated. Don't like it? Sorry. The country was not built the way you think it was built. You think Washington, D.C. is some holy capital? It's a Masonic design. Do you think it was okay for even though we say it's no longer there was still slavery here? We can argue that was 200 years ago, that was 100, that wasn't us. But the stain is still on the country. That's not going to be erased. The Native Americans, to this day, are treated like crap. We still we gave them casinos. So we go to a reservation. I know a very good friend of my family, like a daughter to me. She told me, and she worked on a reservation. She's a basically a nurse practitioner. She went to help because she's that type of person. She says, you would not believe it. So while you're here, our nation, God, we're going to be great again. Where have you overcome your shortcomings? How many thousands of Japanese were interned in World War II? And not only that, but we say, well, we abolished slavery. How long did that take? How long did it take for women to get rights to vote? And of course, even throughout the 60s and 70s, there was racism and massive, and still is. And people get mad at me because, Dave, that's not really true. Oh yeah, I've heard people talk. I've heard many people who you'd think what they spout would not be racist, but they are. Still have it. I know a lot. Yes. And what does our country do that's so great that everybody else wants to revere us? What do they do? Tell me, somebody. Jane, you've been up here. Let's see here. Well, let me tell you what they've done. A good friend, a nice lady from my church, and I've mentioned this on another podcast. A Christian, a very devout person, love her to death. And she was praying, and she made mention of the fact that, and I talked about this in my last video, that Russia and Iran signed a treaty together. I didn't know that it was physically signed. They've been working on it for months. They were supposed to sign it at Kazan in Russia when they had the BRICS meeting there. They did not. Putin and the Russian Federation are very slick. They wanted to be sure all the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted. And so if they did indeed sign their agreement for a mutual protection pact, economic considerations, so be it. It's a good deal for both countries. But this particular person made it sound like this is somehow, evil or a detriment or negative. You see, the thing is, it's us versus them in this world, not just in Trump, Kamala Harris. In this world, it's us versus them. Nobody's more evil than the other person. Excuse me. Nobody. We've been using this rhetoric for decades. It works. See, the nice thing about me, once I get out of the Fox News mindset, my mind was opened up. Once I understood and I started finding ways and means to abstract the truth from the world. And there is truth, and I know people will argue about that. You can't find, it's not true. Nothing's true. Yeah, there are things that are true. There's a lot of things that are true, and there's a lot of ways to find where truth is. It's there. See, because if it's a big deal to you here because you're obsessed, in other countries, it's just a matter of their reporting and their on the ground viewpoint of things is more accurate, and they're going to tell you what they saw. Well, here we're just going to go on ideological grounds. And we do that in every news story. And this goes through every news agency. And even the good people who serve Jesus Christ, and they have been kind of hijacked by this rhetoric, by this narrative. And now everybody's out to get us. I can tell you from research from military analysts, articles, statements made by countries from their own news agencies, that this was never a let's go get the United States. The BRICS and what this lady was talking about, the treaty, was part of a pact to grow a relationship between two countries. We call that diplomacy. Okay, so you can't find diplomacy here in the United States. Again, like I said, what is the United States doing that is promoting the mythology, that, or should I say, keeping people believing the mythology about us of how great we are and how we're perfect and how we should be revered and no one should come against us? Guess what? They're coming against us. Now, that's not a bad thing. That's business, and much of this is business. China, the same thing. You don't have to like the communist country of China, their communist party. You don't have to like their president, Xi Jinping, if I pronounced that right. You don't have to. You see, it doesn't matter if you like Iran or Vladimir Putin or Kim Jong-un of North Korea. You don't have to like them. Okay? You can hate them. And people do. They hate them. They're bad guys. Whether they are or aren't isn't even the point. They're going to be bad guys no matter what. We need bad guys. You see, for this woman to get up and talk about it, she fell into that paradigm. Bad guys. They're out to get us. They're going to destroy us. And we got to do this. No, we destroyed ourselves. Make no mistake about it. We destroyed ourselves. Looks like there are some results here before I go on. Votes. Looks like Donald Trump is leading Kamala Harris in votes by right now quite a distance. Okay, so it looks like Indiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia have gone to Donald Trump, according to this projection. And it looks like Vermont has gone to Kamala Harris. Okay? So right now we're looking at 23 electoral votes to 3 with early results in. Okay? So we'll keep you posted on that as we go along, as my updates come in, and keep you going. Hopefully, as other polls close here, we'll get more and more results or some projections. Okay, so I think this whole thing comes back to when you're voting for a president, and these people that are running, they're obviously going to play to the audience. Okay, Donald Trump is a good example of the hype that has been brought to bear on the American people. Okay, he plays to the America great again, America first again, make America this, and so he plays to this. And of course, people that are Christians love this because, again, we associate Christianity with the United States. Whether you think so or not, whether you realize it or not, we've melded the two. And I've said this in other videos that, there's flags with Jesus still having the crown of thorns on, holding on to the American flag. That's blasphemous to me. That is offensive to me. And but we have nutcases like some of the pastors I talked about yesterday that kind of ranted on stage how people should be killed, and this is the new Christianity. It's a battle. Everybody's a demonic murderer, and you know what? That's crazy talk in itself. It isn't that doesn't exist, but when we just paint that whole wall with one color, how is it that you can fix a rift in our country? You can never do it. It will never happen. And that's why no matter who's elected, and in this case, this particular time around, no matter who's elected, this country is set up to fail. And it goes back to this Russia-Iran thing. It's not the only country, and we've talked about this, the BRICS nations, and people generically say BRICS nations, and they kind of have an idea what's happened, but they don't. The reason the BRICS nations, and it was developed by a person, I believe, from the United States, who developed this model for the BRICS nations back in the 60s. And from the banking system, actually. And this model was to grow the smaller countries into more of an economic conglomeration of helping each other, trade, which was important for small countries. We're not the only country in the world. Again, we seem to think so. And they really became a poor man's European Union. BRICS stands for, today, excuse me, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Of course, we now know that Iran's in it, Saudi Arabia's in it. There's about 85 countries waiting to get in this. It's a good deal for them. And to the point this woman was making, yeah, you have a whole number of nations ganging up on America. Well, they should. The things we've done to people, and again, we don't talk about this because again, it goes back. We bring God and put Him in. See, we just don't use God and pray. We don't just go to God and pray for the best things and to help us, guide us. We just don't use it. We're saying, we have things we want, in this country. And okay, that's fine, but you got to base it on reality. See, that's the whole difference. If you're making it up and you don't even realize what you're saying is either a lie, misadjusted rhetoric, if you don't get it, if you don't get the foundation right, what you're saying is going to fall apart. And unfortunately, for a lot of right-wing people, it falls apart because no matter if Donald Trump wins or Kamala Harris wins, the world's still going to change. And there's the greatest change in history happening right now. The BRICS nation is a part of how that works. It's a system designed to bring countries together to trade fairly. Yes, fairly, without having to use the US dollar, without having to use the SWIFT system. The SWIFT system is the technical way of an acronym that basically encompasses how transactions occur between countries. You just don't go and mail them $50 to buy corn. There's a whole system in place of trade, financial transactions, offsets, and it's a very complex system. And so the BRICS nations, mostly with Russia and China, had worked on engineered their own system that they announced a couple of weeks ago. That was the biggest meeting that no one's ever heard about. And that financial system is going to help many more people in time free themselves to this nice lady who was talking about BRICS and Iran. Unfortunately, it's going to free themselves from the tyranny that the United States government has imposed on nearly every nation in the world. Now, you might not think, what's tyranny? How do we do that? How do you think? Do you ever remember Madeleine Albright? We blew up buildings in Syria. We were bombing Syria for this ISIS group that we helped create. We don't know who we were bombing. They bombed buildings with people in them to get a terrorist, a bad guy. And of course, they ended up killing women and children, people who, lived in Syria, were not part of ISIS, were not part of anything. And they killed them. And those of you that know my story know that I saw a video, or actually a picture, of just such an attack with a man bringing out his daughter. Must have been 7 or 8 years old, I think, maybe 10. She was dead. Now, that little girl and this man was just an average guy. What did she do to us? See, we think, and it's continuing now in the Middle East, we think killing the bad guys in buildings, going after and assassinating leaders, works. We now know through history, through time after time, it does not work. It doesn't work with the drug cartels. It doesn't work in war. But we continue to do it. We continue to drone people around the world. We murder people. Now, the average person here, certain types of people in this country, you know who I'm talking about, think that's okay because we got another bad guy. No, put it on the news. Joe, Billy Bob, Yaya was killed today. Terrorist. Well, first of all, I don't know that he was a terrorist. Do I believe you? You've lied to me about everything you've done. And you bombed a building with children in it. Madeleine Albright would call that. Remember Secretary, or she was the ambassador to the UN, Madeleine Albright. She got up here and said, it's collateral damage. But what have you solved in those years since she was an ambassador? Zero. Nothing. Zilch. Doesn't work. Are we that stupid? We that lazy? We that arrogant? And now we're worried about people making deals because they're tired of our crap. But yet here in the United States, a certain party, and I'm going to have to say the Republican Party, the right-wing people, they think that it's all tied up in just the dominating people. There's Judge Napolitano. If you don't know who he is, look him up. He worked on Fox for years. I think one of the most impressive guys I've ever listened to on topics. Of course, he's a constitutional lawyer. He's a conservative, more right-wing, but he doesn't agree with anything we're doing here. And he'll tell you, we're heading towards an authoritarian leadership. That's what we're heading towards. And many, many right-wing people, including Christians, don't realize that's where it's going. See, we want to impose our values on the whole country. For instance, let's send everybody back and deport every single person. Okay. I mean, I would deport people we know are known criminals, and that might take some time to do, and I think you can legally do that. But when you go to try to deport others, I'm going to guarantee you right now that'll never happen in the 4 years if Donald Trump gets elected. It won't happen. Why? Because there's already a battery of attorneys that'll challenge it. Don't you get how the system works? Dictatorships don't always work in democracies, not all the time. Sometimes you can write an executive order, but it'll be challenged. It can be challenged. So the things we think we're going to get with someone authoritative, whether it's Donald Trump or even Kamala Harris, That's no done deal. Now, Donald Trump only has 4 years. What do you think you're going to get done in 4 years as a lame duck president? Especially if Congress doesn't work out the way you'd like it. You're going to try to executive order people? You're going to try to, what? Because it's all going to go to the courts. That's life today. I don't like it either. That's life. Grow up. So when we talk about what the future holds here, there's not much change in direction. The world has moved on from us. I always joke about that. It's moved on. The world has moved on. You know why? Because it has. Because we now can, they would say. It was the Stephen King book, The Gunslinger. And I believe it was the first chapter of The Gunslinger where basically the hero, Roland of Gilead, was traveling through the wastelands, and the narrator said the world had moved on. And there's a reason for that in the book. Everything was different than when he was basically sort of a sheriff in his land. His land collapsed and fell. Everything changed. Technology was gone. The world had moved on. We're in that position where the world is moving on from us. It may take some time. It might take a few years, 5 years, who knows? But it's already started. And it actually started before this. So when you go up and you want to pray a prayer, pray that Russia and Iran can have a peaceful relationship and can help with peace in that Middle East. That's what you want to pray for. Not fear that we got to protect us. You know, do you remember the old saying? They still use it because people love these sayings, even though they're not true, even though that they've been used 1,000 times. American citizens will still keep liking it. If we don't fight them over there, we'll fight them here. So I'm going to say this. I laughed because I can see what they're talking about is like ISIS fighters. Let's use those people. Them coming across the ocean in Toyota pickups and coming up onto the beach with machine guns firing at the people on the beach. They're coming to get us. They've taken the war to us. As much as we've been talking about terrorist acts, bombings, militias, to this point, we haven't had a one. To this point, most of that is mostly narrative. It's mostly hype. I'm not saying it can't happen. And maybe someday it will happen. Maybe it'll be next week. But when you live for that fear, and you look over your shoulder all the time, is that living? The Russians are going to attack us. There's nothing said, written, or talked about in the last 5 years that ever would make us believe that would happen. No, it can happen. Do you understand? Yeah, I know you understand because some idiot told you. Fox News, the State Department. Oh yeah, idiots that control what you hear, what you know, what you understand. The Ukraine war. I remember when it started. I remember. 2014, actually. You didn't know that. Some of you do because I've told you this. 2014, we overthrew the government in Ukraine, put someone in that we wanted because we were trying to prevent Russia from growing. We wanted to box them in. We wanted to have all NATO countries surrounding them. When you have a NATO country next door to you, and you're Russia, and there's missiles pointed at you, that's sort of an act of aggression, don't you think? Now, this could have been avoided. We could have settled. We could have made a deal. Said, listen, we're not going to go with NATO there. No weapons. No more army that will attack you. We're going to make sure that Ukraine is neutral. They refused. Why? Because they wanted the war with Ukraine and Russia. But now the Russians are the bad guys because they're doing business. They're the aggressors. It's all you hear in European newspapers. The rest of the world, not so much. But in Europe and the United States, we got to fight to the last Ukrainian. That's what they're going to do. And that's what's happening. I'm going to give you an update on Ukraine this week, on the war in Ukraine. It might surprise you. But the truth is that Ukraine is losing the war and losing it badly. And if Donald Trump gets elected, my assumption is he wants to put that war to rest. Now, I think his opinion is he's going to bang heads together, threaten, and force them to come to an agreement. Having read all the data and the documentation that's been put forth by the Russian Federation and Vladimir Putin, they won't stop short of having all the weapons in Ukraine put down, all lands that they consider now Russia to be vacated by Ukrainian troops, and permanent demarcation lines where no weapons will ever be placed, offensive weapons will ever be placed on Russia's border. Now that's the deal on the table. So I don't know what he thinks is going to happen here, but I do know that other analysts closer to it than I believe that there won't be a deal with Trump unless it's the deal that the Russians want. You see, they believe all the territories they're fighting, which are the Russian-speaking territories, are now Russian because they voted to bring them in to the Russian Federation. Now, whether the United States or anybody else agrees with that isn't the point. The Russians do, and they have the bigger stick. So right now, you don't have a lot of choice. We're running out of money and weapons to send them. They're running out of men. Matter of fact, they've almost lost a whole generation of young people. Sad. See, this is why I have an anti-war flavor to my podcasts. War is not good. But you see, we don't care. And I've said this just yesterday or the day before, that if you want this war, if you think it's a just war, and you want Russia to lose, a lot of people have gone over there. We can get you set up, and we're going to take a collection up here in the Tomsic analysis. Let us know who you are. I'll see if I can get money raised to get you a uniform, maybe a rifle, a canteen, a helmet, boots maybe. I forgot boots yesterday, and a basically, and someone to fly you over, give you a lesson, maybe a freebie on how to parachute, and we'll drop you into the war zone. And you can fight for freedom. Okay? Because my son's not going to do it. It ain't happening. Okay? America, poll-wise, said no to war in Ukraine. No, Trump wants out of it. I'll get to that in a minute. Kamala Harris gets elected. She will continue the Biden policy of basically trying to front the Ukrainians, trying to hold on. Now, here after the election, things may change. They've tried to hold it together, the Democrats have, through this election. So nothing really bad happened that would hurt Kamala Harris's chances of winning the election. So there's been a lot of things happening behind the scenes. After this, we'll see. Maybe she'll, or should I say her boss, Joe Biden, maybe he's just going to say, forget it. Cut the ties, we're gone. Looks like we may be doing that. But Europe might not be in that mindset. So you see, this war is still raging. The war really is against not just Russia, but against China and the BRICS. They're trying to fracture that. America wants to fracture that relationship. They want to stay on top. Not going to happen. Now in the Middle East, Iran, Trump would set his sights on that war. That's why he wants out of Ukraine. He will, and according to Rudy Giuliani, the basically the disgraced ex-governor of New York, they want to bomb Iran. That's not an easy task, and I don't know that that can be done and have a victory from it. I think that would start a world war. But again, depends how Trump thinks of the United States military. If he's thinking like a lot of the right-wing people, well, we can bomb and beat anybody, go for it. Except now they have a treaty with Russia. Okay. So you see how this works. You want your kid to go to the Middle East. You want boots on the ground there because, Iran is not Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria or Libya. You just can't go bomb things, okay? It's not going to work. It's a sophisticated, technology-oriented country, and it's a big country, and it's far away. So you might have to, if you're going to invade, you have to invade maybe with soldiers. Well, again, my kid's not going to go. I'll tell you that right now. If your kid wants to go, I'll pitch in. If you want to go, I'll pitch in. Okay, these people that want the American way of life to be about war and defeating all the bad guys in the world, because everybody's a bad guy. Everybody. He looked at me wrong. Bad guy. Sanction them. Kill them. Take them out of their office. Overthrow them. I mean, that's what we do. And you're out there. We're going to vote to win. We look like fools to the rest of the world. Parades with paper confetti. Remember, hero parades. We have to have heroes. Everybody's a hero now. Everybody. They're all heroes. We have to continue the rhetoric. We have to continue the magical illusion of the United States. I love my country, but I don't like what it's become. It's an empire. And I've talked about this for many, many years. And many others have too. It's not just me. Many people who have studied history and how empires fall and rise and that whole, thing, they can tell you that, this is considered an empire. We have about 800 military bases around the world. I believe we have 8 in Italy. Why? Many believe there could be up to 900 bases around the world. That's an empire. We use them there not to police the world like people think, not the way you think. We have them there to control. Okay? We have them there to intimidate. See, the United States wants to get its way because it's better than everybody. Many of you think so. Yes, many of you do think so. But we're not. We're just people. We're flawed people. Just because other countries are brown or yellow or what have you, poor, doesn't make them any less human. Doesn't make them any less in need of freedom. We're the only country that has freedom. Well, that's not necessarily true either. We're legendary when it comes to that. No one's like us. They want to attack us because of who we are, because we have freedom. They attack us because they hate us, because we've declared war on them for years. How many times has the British Empire, the Dutch Empire, what did they do over the years with all these countries? Africa, South Africa, Middle East, used and abused these people for decades. And now they're all after us because we're rich and we're great and no one wants to, let us have our way here. We want to attack you and we want to ruin your life. So this election, to me, means nothing. To many people who have said the most important election in history. I think what's going to happen is going to happen no matter who's in office. Okay? The things they can affect right away are limited. Especially Donald Trump, because it's a 4-year term. By the time you're up and running, and then at the end, by the time you're really a lame duck and it's over, and there's campaigning in that 4th year and then the better half of the 3rd year, the campaigns, what they think of you is done. You're behind the scenes. Okay? Not a lot of time to go through that 25-point plan unless you really are authoritarian, and you can maybe force things to be done. But I won't deal with it. Okay, we have an update here. Okay, so other states, Oklahoma, Missouri, Alabama, and of course Florida all went to Donald Trump. So he has, uh, Kamala Harris got looks like Rhode Island, and well, let's see who she got here. Doesn't say. Okay, so right now the electoral count is 90 for Trump, 27 for Harris. Now, most of these were already pegged for Donald Trump, so that's kind of caveat to this. Oh yeah, she got Washington D.C. Yeah, so basically nothing news yet worthy yet. Most of the states that were projected for Trump went to Trump right off the bat here. So okay, so let's talk a little bit about the economy. Okay, with both these candidates, Kamala Harris, tax cuts for over a million, 100 million people. Yeah, tax cuts for a third of the country, raising taxes on the wealthiest people. She wants to give a $25,000 tax or cash benefit to first-time home buyers in a certain category. Wants to continue the healthcare system as it is. And Donald Trump wants to raise tariffs, I think, to 66% coming in from countries, especially China. He wants the tax cuts for richer people. He wants to build a border wall and deport I forget how many millions of people there. And he wants to build one other thing. He wants to build an Iron Dome missile defense system. Okay, so here, what's the denominator between these two platforms? A little different take, but platform, or should I say the common denominator, is the very fact that where are they going to get the money? Does anybody know where you're going to get the money? Well, I think, and I have to fix this thing here. The problem is they have no choice, okay? You see, when I tell people the economy is not fixable, and they want to come in and say they're going to fix the economy, you got half the people say it's the greatest economy in history, the other half that say it's the worst economy in history. I can tell you that there's documentation and data for both sides of that, okay? And there is. You got the markets, you got the bond, you got a lot of things that, have really stayed pretty stable. So how do you do that? Well, you print money. Donald Trump did it, Barack Obama did it, Joe Biden did it, and whoever comes next will do it again. Now you have a $36 trillion debt as of probably next month. You have unfunded liabilities, derivatives. It's into 700 trillions derivatives. Derivatives are, one way to put it is, you have 1,000 mortgage loans that you bundle together. A lot of them are horrible, bad. You just bundle them and you sell them and you get a dumb amount for them, but maybe they're worthless. But people have these derivatives on their books and they don't really know until they try to sell them what they might really be worth when you break down the bundle. We have banks that are failing because of the mistakes they've made. We have interest rates that they have reduced again. When you reduce interest rates, of course, you help inflation. And, of course, you help rich people, too. But so you have this whole problem with debt. See, debt is a unnatural thing. Now, I know you might say, well, that's not true. Everybody always had debt. Well, the idea is not to have debt. So if the idea is not to have debt, having it is not good. Okay? Now, we really got into the debt world basically in February of 1913 when the Federal Reserve was born. The Federal Reserve. I've talked about this a lot. It was hatched on Jekyll Island, right off the coast of Georgia. Jekyll Island on the 13th, 1913, by 6 people. 6 people. And Woodrow Wilson signed the bill. It went through Congress pretty quick. No one was there, and he signed it into law. Now, they believed it was going to help the banking system. But what it really did was give people outside the U.S. government control of our currency. Wow. That was a coup d'etat, wasn't it? Lord Rothschild of the Rothschild family, well known for being on both sides of every war in history, being rich and powerful, and yes, have allegiance to Satan. That's notorious. The witch Abramovich, I believe her name is. You've seen her probably in with Katy Perry and other stars. She's the satanic witch. A lot of her paintings are done in feces and urination and blasphemous stuff. So yeah, this woman's, and she's done spirit cooking, and so she kind of hung out with him, okay, before his death. And the reason I bring that up is to tell you how evil this is, okay? He said, excuse me again. He said that give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who runs the government. Did you like that? Give me control of a nation's money, and I care not who runs the government. And of course, what has happened with this debt-based system? Well, you go into debt and you owe your soul to somebody else, okay? And of course, this nation owes, for instance, China billions of dollars. It has debt that it can't service because the interest on the debt is almost as much as the debt payment. And these are short-term loans the government gets, so they come due, and more will come due in January at a higher interest rate than probably when they took them out, meaning more money will only go to interest. Now, other people were saying this isn't a big deal. I've said this in the past. Debt's not a big deal to some people. They don't think it hurts the American way. What do you think? Let me know. What do you think? Anybody, let me know what you think about debt. And I can tell you what I think about debt. I think it's the death knell of the United States government, because other factors eventually come into play, as I mentioned with the BRICS nations. As they draw away from the United States and away from the use of the dollar, which is still, even with the BRICS, going to be a major currency. But as they pull away, the dollar will weaken. Its buying power will weaken even more, because the dollars that should be in the banks of these other countries won't be there anymore. It'll be back here, increasing inflation, destroying the cost of living. See, it isn't so much that prices went up. It's the buying power of your dollar has collapsed, okay? And that's not an easy thing to fix. So this debt-based nation that we have is not financially sound. And no matter who's in there, and even when Trump was in his 4 years, and Obama before him and Biden after him, there were major cracks in the walls of the United States financial system. In fact, the financial system itself died in 2008. And that's a whole story that I've told many times. And the theory I've had, and others, economists, have said that Oh, hi, Katerina and Sean, my friends. Thank you for joining me today. Hello. I'm talking about 2008, financial crash of 2008. Some of you, some people watching this or eventually watching this, probably too young to remember. I don't even remember what really happened. I got laid off from Sony Electronics and I went back to school to get my master's degree. And I didn't realize how bad off the economy was because I was just a guy just trying to survive. And most people are like that. It wasn't until later that I got enlightened. But 2008, the financial crisis, and Ben Bernanke, the Secretary of the Treasury, or should I say the Federal Reserve Chairman, and he knew there was trouble, okay? And they went to Congress, him and Hank Paulson, who was the Treasury Secretary. Old Hank Paulson, Hungry Hank. And they said to Congress that if you don't give us, at that time, $700 billion tomorrow morning, there'll be tanks in the streets. Why? Because the financial system died. I'm looking here, projected winner of South Carolina, Donald Trump. Okay, an update. Okay, so the financial system died. There would be no transacting. There wouldn't be money. The banks would shut down. Credit would be shut down. Without credit, the country, remember, debt. It can't function. You can't transfer money. I mean, it would collapse. The economy would go into free fall. And maybe it should have, because that might have been better than the bloodbath we've had since, but I digress. So the Federal Reserve got involved, and that was Hank Paulson, basically the Federal Reserve Chairman. And they dragged the lifeless body of Uncle Sam, and if many of you saw my videos, I have a toe tag with Uncle Sam on a table. And they reanimated Uncle Sam. They got him back and made him alive again, but as a zombie. And since that time, since 2008, interest rates had to remain relatively low or close to zero, and the Federal Reserve had to continue to print money and then end up buying the bonds back, okay? This big cycle. And, of course, money was filtered into the markets to keep everything inflated like a balloon. Once that money stopped being printed and interest rates went up, the balloon would shrink. And this, in fact, happened under Donald Trump's watch. The same Donald Trump that in 2017 said, or should I say 15, before he was elected, said the only reason the Obama economy worked was because of printed money and low interest rates. And lo and behold, Donald Trump, good to his word, reneged on that promise and continued to print money. In fact, he forced the Fed to, when they tried to wean off of the low interest rates and printing, he demanded it they continue because the stock market started to fall. This is how it works. And so those of you that think there's this magic fix, this is all he has to do. They have a plan. See, there's a plan. He's got this plan. He don't tell us because it's complicated. And it's 75 dimension chess. And this will all work out, and interest rates will be zero, and gas prices will go down. By the way, gas prices have nothing to do with the President of the United States unless you're selling fuel out of the oil reserves at a big number. That did happen under Biden. But outside of that, it's still supply and demand. It still has to do with how much is produced, who's producing it. And a lot of that oil, of course, is produced by the petroleum producers in the Middle East and Russia now. And when Trump was president, there was no manufacturing in the world. Remember, we were under a COVID lockdown. Manufacturing across the nation ceased. Guess what happens to oil? You don't need it because you're not making anything. Without oil, you can't make plastic, you can't make anything. You're not making anything. Zero, zilch. So prices went down. But we hear from the news that, oh, yes, because of Donald Trump. Go down. That doesn't work that way. But we want it to because, see, we feel better. Our paradigm, our fixed narrative, our fixed belief system continues to work. that somebody has authority over stuff and they can fix it if they want to, because all the rest of the people are trying to destroy us and kill us and harm us. I don't know. Let's see if there's any other updates here. Okay, it's 99 to 27 right now. Trump with 12,500,000 votes. Kamala with 10,415,000 votes. And of course, again, it looks like all the states that were already kind of earmarked for Trump are Donald Trump's states. Okay, so this election could be a blowout, or could be a close call. I don't have a clue, people. I don't. I really, really don't. Polling statistics, I don't look at them because when you're dealing with like 5 or 8% of those people that haven't decided the last month, you're dealing with matters that you can't really always quantify. Okay? So the thing is, I'm going to see if I got another view of this. Okay. Right now, it looks like too close to call. Looks like Trump's ahead in Pennsylvania right now. Harris is ahead in Michigan and North Carolina. Harris is ahead of Trump in North Carolina. And Harris is ahead of Trump in Pennsylvania. I was wrong. That's with just a few precincts counted. So it's going to be a long night. I'm not going to stay here the whole night, people. I don't know how many are watching. But I kind of want to say this, that no matter what happens here, and I know people have all their own disagreements and their own, as I mentioned, their own sort of paradigm they look at, their own consensus in their mind of how they think the world works. And I found out the hard way that the world doesn't work like we think it does, and it's now even that's changing. So the United States, no matter who's president, okay, and I'm going to stress this, and I know people look at issues with a very, very thin focus, but those issues in the big scheme of things are minor, okay? The odds of, for instance, expelling every what you would call an illegal immigrant in the country are very small. That'll take years, if not multiple years. It'll be court battles to get inflation down. Unless you stop printing money, unless you raise interest rates, and that's the only way. People, I'm an economist. If you don't raise interest rates beyond what the inflation rate is, like 2 or 3 points beyond it, you'll never control it. That has its own poison pill too, raising interest rates higher. Other things slow down. Credit slows down. That balance is now out of whack. You see, we are out of whack as a financial system. Remember, our economy's dead. The economy we once knew is gone. We're now in a derivative-based freak show economy based on debt and borrowing. Okay? Unless either of these candidates, if they're elected, go after the debt, nothing else can ever be. The distortions created by the debt and all the things that have happened cannot be repaired. And I know a lot of folks think, well, that's easier than you think, David. It's not. Believe me, I know the math on this. Mathematically, it's a probability that our economy collapses at some point in the next few years. It's not if, but when. Okay? Because the numbers all the way through, not just debt, but everything else that trickles through, will prove that point out. Jobs. I know we talk about jobs. So many fake jobs. Biden had so many fake jobs you couldn't count them all. They all do. So did Trump. So did Obama. I can go down the list. These are not hard to find. See, here's the thing people don't get. No one wants to believe anything because they don't want to go and understand how that system works, where to get the real numbers. Because there are real numbers. Someone has a file to understand that the death, basically the birth-death configuration, we still use it. It's based in the 1950s. That's done. I mean, there's so many things that go against it. Plus, year after year, you'll have less and less jobs. Year after year, we have less and less young people. We have less and less babies being born. Our birth rate has dropped below sustainability as a country. We're not the only one. All of the Western countries have the same issue. And in the meantime, as AI in the next 2 to 3 years, and it's already happening, start making massive dents in the labor industry. Right now, they're making some jabs, some crosses. They're making contact with eliminating jobs. But at some point, more and more jobs will be gone because of artificial intelligence. Right now, artificial intelligence is still in its infantile stage. It's an infantile stage. Okay? Yeah, some jobs are taken and they still need this guy and that guy. But at some point, it all starts melting together. Like that web. You know, the web then finally produces the perfect outline of what the spider uses. And once that's complete and it's all interconnected, then you need less and less people. There's already machines that make hamburgers and French fries. I've seen them. I get pamphlets in the mail all the time because I've investigated them, and people think I'm interested in investing. Oh, goodness. In these technologies. There's already an automated McDonald's somewhere. Just one, maybe two. There are stores that you just have to tap and leave. Not a lot of them. There's a few. That will grow as the technology by the store owner grows, as their understanding of it grows, as they have employees as it gets easier to implement. And the easier it gets, the more and more stores will go to it because you have less and less people to draw from to man your store. We talk about this all the time about the old guys in the Panera mad because they had to wait in line for McDonald's. Everybody, all the kids are in their basements playing games. Are they? Well, if you believe that, that's okay. But I will tell you this. If that's true, why are there kids working at these restaurants? Are they all in the basement or just some of them? And if they're not all in the basement, maybe there's just not enough of them to cover all the jobs of all the fast food restaurants in the area. Here's my thing I'm going to get into, and I might as well do it. You see, America, and those that perpetuate it, and that's the elites, the rich, who need to be taxed hard. Don't care what you think. That's a mathematical done deal. Should have been. Okay? All the arguments for not taxing was baloney. Pay your fair share. Okay? But I digress. All those elites have told you that we have a thing called unlimited growth. It's unlimited. Here in America, it's unlimited. We're going to grow. And that's why when you go to a town like mine and some of the areas around me, there's malls and mostly plazas, more businesses. They knock down forests and build more and more and more Wendy's, McDonald's, and Starbucks. Five Guys, which is in bankruptcy. And you see more and more restaurants going out of business because, once again, the model doesn't work of unlimited growth. But they believe there's unlimited growth. And I've used this as an example in the past. That pumpkin pie is on the table. There's 8 pieces to it. 8. But there's 50 of you in the room. They'll either cut them in smaller sections. You're going to get a smaller piece of the pie. But they're promising you a full piece of a quarter of that pie. So that first 4 pieces is gone. Cut it in 4, and people have these big pieces, and the other 47 people are waiting for their. All of a sudden, magically, there's another full pie appeared right in front of you. It's magic. What kind of magic is this? Because you see, it's unlimited. Growth is unlimited. You can never take the last slice. Yeah, there is unlimited. Okay? Everything's unlimited. You never have enough for everybody, or you wouldn't have homeless people. Okay? You wouldn't have the poverty you have. Because if everything was unlimited, you can then share with those people. Say, here. We don't, because we want it all for ourselves. And we know that we won't get a second shot at a slice. So we go after it, and we go after the slice next to it, and the slice next to it. And more people are taking the whole pie, which was designed for 50 people. Now it's one taking the whole pie. So you got to produce 50 pies. But all of a sudden, the actual pumpkin for that pie is on a shortage. The breadcrumbs are not there. The aluminum, the tin, you can't find. Other ingredients are missing. We're finding that out right now with shortages of all sorts of things across this nation. America does not have unlimited resources. In fact, many of the reasons we're in other countries is because we want their resources and we'll steal them. And we have. What do you think we're in Iraq for? To watch the terrorists? No. We're still in oil. They want us out. We refuse to leave. Oh, by the way, all of you people that said, these countries are out to get us, well, if we're out to get us, why do we just want to make them matter? Why don't we just leave? Why are we there? If they don't want us, they don't like us, leave. Bring them home. Bring our people home. We don't, because you see, we don't have unlimited growth. We need, and this country and the people that run it in the deep state and in the permanent government know that we don't have the resources. We do not have the resources to continue as we are. We don't. We don't. And of course, there is a balance. How many resources do you need? At what cost do you get them? The oil's another big point that people want to die over. It's a hill they want to die on. We need more oil. Dig more. Drill more. More. No. One of the places they want to drill is off the coast of California. Santa Barbara, I believe. One of the 5 most pristine places in the world. So they want these butchers to go there with their drilling rigs and drill. Now, these holes aren't like we see in Saudi Arabia where they stick a straw in and oil pops up. These are some very complex, expensive holes to drill. That's why, even though they don't have leases for that, which I hope they never get, they won't even drill if they had a lease right now, because for them to take that oil, the cost of a barrel of oil would have to be around $150 minimum. See, right now at 83, whatever it is, they're breaking even, maybe making a few bucks, maybe. See, nothing's as easy as you think. Now, my point I've always made is, we waste. And that's the problem with people who believe that there's no limits to everything you have. Because you start wasting it. We do it with water. You see people actually washing their sidewalks with water. Washing it. A little dirty. The whole sidewalk, driveways. Now, right now, 80% of this country's in a drought. Now you might say that's unusual. Well, no, it is unusual. It means the water levels, and if you look around, I know people with wells or with springs. Springs dried up. Never dried up before, dried up. How do you conserve your water then? How do you protect yourself? Just like with oil and energy. We waste everything because we have an abundance and we think it's unlimited. So we'll keep polluting. Oh yeah. If you don't think that we still pollute, there's something wrong with you. Do you think those cars on my busy, crazy street that they've now made it like a highway, the developers of our fine land built homes on farms and put another 1,000, 2,000 cars on the road on a highway built in 1950. Okay, so these cars are backed up. They're poor. You think that stuff's healthy for you, for your environment, for everything? Do you think that's what you should have in your community? Unlimited, we got to do it. We have to. It's unlimited. It used to be conservation was what we all tried to work for. Don't let your water run all the time. Don't keep lights on. Use your brain. Keep your furnace. I mean, there shouldn't be laws. You're right to tell you how high to keep your furnace or how low. But you should have common sense. Because if it ever gets to that there needs to be a law, probably it's because something's wrong. But we don't. We don't care. Drill. There's billions and trillions. And, well, there isn't. Even if they, tap the resources they had, you don't realize, and I didn't bring the statistics with me, you think they give you these numbers for how much oil's there. You don't even realize how much is used and how much is projected to be used in energy, in fuel. You don't even have a clue that it's almost parity. We have very little room there. And even though oil is limited to some degree at some point, the people that want unlimited growth, then the growth would be unlimited to a point where you're going to have more usage than you have supply, more demand than supply. Fracking. This is the fracking capital of the world. At some point, they start losing how much they pull out of there. It gets less and less. The depletion rates exponentially grow. That's not forever. So what do? Well, yeah, they want to go solar, and I'm not against solar energy. It's expensive to me. I don't have it. But at least someone tried something. How about conservation? How about using your brain? How about a plan? Instead of just grow, 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 dig, 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 drill, 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 because everything's okay. Is it? You don't think there's pollution? If you don't, there's something wrong with you. You don't think that our climate's changing, and maybe it's not just all the things you say, cloud spots and sunspots and radiation spots and just the natural tendencies of the earth. Maybe pollution does play a role, and I think it does. I don't know how big of a role, but even if it's a small role, do you want pollution around your children, into your water, in your food, plastic in the ocean everywhere? I had a conservative Republican tell me they didn't believe there was plastic in the ocean. They have to see it to believe it. I didn't even answer him because you know what? I can't talk to stupid. Because again, nothing's a problem. Unlimited growth. They just want to harm us. They want to take what we have away from us. Some people do, I'm sure. But other people, I think, really mean the fact that we don't want to destroy what we have. And believe me, when you dig up and tear all the trees down and the animals have nowhere to go and you're complaining that there's animals in your backyard, we should step back and think. We're piling everybody into our own self-made 15-minute city. And the people against 15-minute cities are for unlimited growth and piling them in here. Yeah, they are. They're building more. Oh, it's nice. You've got a 15-minute city right here in southwestern Pennsylvania. Because it's just growth, 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 growth. Knock every tree down and put more ugly eyesore homes on it. Ugly eyesore homes. I drove through the country today, and there was these, now they're building like 4 units together. These things are cheaply built, and they're ugly. And it's called Scenic Valley. All you see is the back of the next door neighbor's roof. That's scenic to you? I'm going to check on here. Georgia's still too close to call. Everybody's still within the 14th percentile of counting, so we're not going to really worry about those things right now. So people, you can argue with me all you want. There is a right. There is a way. It isn't greed or usage or demanding or just taking or the fake paradigm, the fake narrative of unlimited growth, and everybody's going to have their piece of the pie. Because guess what? They don't. In fact, the statistics show the other way around. The top 1 to 2% are grabbing most of the wealth right now and have since 2008. And since 2020, exponentially have sucked wealth up into the top 2%. Excuse me. So that tells you that whatever you think you believe, you're off. Now, I'm not saying that some people don't do okay. They don't do well. But they're dependent on a lot of other things for that to happen. Okay, they're dependent on an infrastructure and an employment that works, that isn't all of a sudden not able to get credit. It's all of a sudden, losing its ability to function because they don't have enough people. I mean, you can go down the list of problems that can happen that can shut any business down. This is a society based on technology, and the veneer of this society is very thin, and it doesn't take a lot to fracture it. You can see in 2020, if they didn't hand checks out, there was a real plague. I mean, a plague that they couldn't control at all. You have chaos. I know people argue about that whole 4 years. Listen, it is what it is. Get used to it, because it's not going to be the last time. So you have a real problem here in America. You have an election with two candidates, neither really stand-up people. You have Renee and Tom. I see. Yeah, hello. Yeah, my show is only on YouTube today. I guess you find out I had issues with part of Restream, so it's just YouTube. But thank you for joining me, friends. Love you guys. Listen, I got a lot of good people to listen, and we discuss things all the time. We don't always agree on things, but we can come away just still loving each other and being who we are. I took the time. If you don't know a lot about me, I took the time after I witnessed this Syria debacle and this child being pulled out of the rubble by her dad, and having a daughter of my own. I wouldn't imagine how it would be a disaster in my heart. I mean, I could drop dead just by thinking about it. It's terrible. And let alone, something that didn't need to happen. And for you that don't know, you folks don't know about the ISIS deal in the Middle East. That was a creation to help, and they still kind of work for the United States government, the CIA. And they were there to overthrow Assad in Syria. That was the idea. We were going to overthrow 11 countries in 5 years. And Syria was one of them. Now, I think we did mostly all of them, or a good portion of them. And the reason was that we were trying to control the Middle East because of its oil. We wanted to have a thumb on everybody. We wanted to still be the predominant power in the Middle East, which is the whole key behind America's aggressiveness today in every other country. We want to be the predominant power, the apex predator, the hegemonic power of the world. And that meant being a unipower, being unipolar, being one country over everybody else. See where I'm going? Us and everybody else. But what happened? Other countries now have risen and are equal, nearly equal, or close to equal. Very much. So now we have a multipolar world. And that doesn't work, because then you can't just go pushing your weight around. There's another bully on the block, 2 or 3. India, China, Russia alone pull a lot of weight in the world. Add Turkey and Saudi Arabia, Iran. You're looking at a formidable group of economic powerhouses, in a way. Military. It's a different ball game. Okay, so we wanted to control the Middle East. And we tried to overthrow all of them. And we failed in two places. We really failed in Syria. And the reason we failed in Syria and the reason why we had to escalate in Ukraine is because Russia got involved and made sure that Syria didn't fall. And they destroyed ISIS in Syria to our chagrin, And Iran is another story, excuse me, which we're trying to topple now with Israel. So these two countries never really we were able to kind of defeat. So instead of us being the only and the number one power in the Middle East, it's now Iran and Russia and even China, who's involved in the Middle East, has agreements with Iran and other countries. This is a formidable agreement. This is a formidable foe. So what do we do? Well, you probably best to, if we can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. Don't get people killed over it. They played a good hand. They trumped you, not to use any, negative connotation to Donald Trump, but they outplayed you. They outplayed you in Ukraine. Because you see, we're a failing nation. We're a failing empire. It goes all full circle. So those of you, again, who were out there and kind of cringe when you hear these things happening, don't. This is how the world works. And if you want to bring Christianity into it, your faith into it, everybody always says, well, God's in control. Yeah, but also have free will here. So, we, by free will, chose to have war, to be a country of war. We chose that. We chose the people we're voting for now. We chose the Congress people we've had. We chose. And then the game is played with the pieces you have on the board. And we don't like it. We say, well, God, you have to change it. Well, no, we chose free will. And I know a lot of people want to hear that. We chose to piss every single country off in the world, nearly every one of them. Even the ones that we still kind of like, that still kind of like us, don't trust us. So this is just natural progression. The countries are going to say, guess what? We're done with you. We're going to protect ourselves. We're going to build what we have. And in the meantime, we know you're going to attempt to overthrow us, kill us, drone us, start a war with us, whatever, which is what we do. But we're going to stand firm. And hopefully they believe they can. So when you're concerned that somehow this is, God has to intervene and prevent this, why would he? You reap what you sow. We reaped what we're sowing. See, no one can explain this to me. They just jump back to the mythology of the United States. They jump back to this bubble they live in. This isn't a bad thing. This isn't necessarily an evil, satanic thing. Even though the devil plays an important part in a lot of things. He's involved in a lot of stuff. But in the big scheme here, he doesn't need to scare Christians. They're scaring themselves. You play right into his hand. Fear. Oh. Well, at some point, the world changes. The world moves on. And it's one thing for you to believe, and same with me and my faith, you believe the tenets of Christianity. All this other stuff to me is just superficial, crazy stuff. That's just the way I think about it. Listen, God already knows what's going to happen. He already knew that the BRICS would be started. He already knew that Russia and Iran, he already knew all this stuff. They don't have to be good or evil or bad. This is part of the world system today. It's an evil system, maybe, but we're part of that evil system. In fact, we might be one of the most evil parts of the system. Children in Syria can't get medicine because we have sanctions on medicine to Syria. So how bad are we compared to any of these other countries? Well, they don't believe what we believe. Well, guess what? We knew that too. That's scriptural. Your job is to go out and preach to them, not to condemn them and point fingers at them and say, oh, they're out to get me. The Russians are going to attack. The Russians are going to attack. It's like 5 years old. The Russians are going to attack. The Russians are going to attack. No, I'm not going to see Russian troops in America. First of all, I don't think people realize how, and I learned this the hard way too from a military strategist. He said, you don't know how many men it takes, people, men and women, to invade a country, a big country. Right now in Ukraine, the Russians have about 600,000 people in the theater. Not all of them are fighting, and another 400,000 in reserve. They have a million people army right now, but not all of them are fighting. Okay, and that includes people behind the scenes, the logistics, food, medical. I mean, and that's right next door to their border. Now imagine us going to fight in China. If we went to fight in China, how long would it take to? How many people would you need to keep things moving? How many ships? How much aircraft? I mean, and if the Russians came here to the United States, how many people would they need? Would it be just pulling up on our shores? I mean, no one thinks this out. The Chinese might be able to do it, but they already have a lot of soldiers in this country and a lot of soldiers in Canada. Is that what they're going to do? I don't know. Some people believe that's true, and I respect their opinion. Some had had, visions from God, and this is true, that they will attack us. I don't know. See, when you try to do, when you try to think this out and think this through, the different variations of what can happen, what you find is that, if it happens, it's going to be happening by surprise, and I think that's what most people think. But it's hard to invade a country by surprise. Something catastrophic would have to happen to even instigate that, to even let that happen, that you'd get invaded. So maybe that was a long way of saying, I am clueless as to what's really happening in those things, because most people are, even analysts and those that predict, and those that, wrong half the time. They were wrong about Ukraine. A lot of analysts believe that Russia would fall apart, that Ukraine and the big army they had would win quickly, the Russian government would fall apart, their economy would fall apart. They couldn't have been more wrong. Now Russia's military is one of the top 3 in the world from experience now. Plus they have sophisticated equipment. While our defense industry spend more money than all the top 20 countries combined in their military, the Russians have weapons we can't even deal with. What happened there? It goes back to, we've been bamboozled. We've been lied to. While they're pocketing money and building 5 and 6 summer homes, and I'm talking military industrial people, I'm talking even our congressmen getting kickbacks. Well, they're doing that. We're struggling to pay for food and gas. And our equipment sucks. Then there's people, they have secret stuff. Well, then show me. We're in trouble. And we're in trouble because of what we sowed for decades. And no amount of crying over it, no election 2024 is going to fix it. The sad thing is, you got a good chance of, no matter who's elected, for it becoming worse. Let me go down that road a little bit. You've got a very good chance of things getting worse with no matter who's elected. I know you don't want to hear it. Yes, Renee, I understand that. Yeah, so you know what I'm saying here. When I saw that Syrian man pull his daughter out, it tore me up. I started researching. I'll finish that story. So I was a right-wing nut job. And I'm sorry if that's offends you, but I was. Fox News, 24 hours a day, believed everything they said. Loved watching the girls with the high skirts. I call it now the bimbo squad. They're there. You know, if I was talking about the Middle East, use nuclear bombs, make the desert into glass, yada, yada, yada. I was that guy. Kill them all. Let God sort them out. That was me. And I started thinking some things were suspicious back in the day, about 12 years ago. And two soldiers, ex-soldiers came in. They were Army Rangers. They were working, delivering carpets. That's what they did. They did it as a group, two guys. And we got into some conversations. And they opened my mind up. And they says, check this out and that out. And while researching it, they just look at Syria. And that's when I pulled up this picture of what happened. And I did the research and talked to them. And they said, yeah, this is what we do. We go in and it's being done today in the Middle East. We just bombed buildings we thought people were in. We didn't care who was in them. We just would bomb buildings. That was our job. That was our strategy. But it didn't work. And they admitted it really didn't work. What did we really win? We didn't. We had bases there, but they want us out. They're not listening to anything we have to say. We didn't really win. We didn't win in Afghanistan. We didn't win in Iraq. We destroyed the Middle East. Libya is a disaster because of us. Most of those countries are. And what did we come out with? Okay, but I digress. So as I researched these things, I started realizing that there's something off here. Okay? And the more I dug, and it took me years to find sources that were accurate all the time. And the people I talk to or read from or listen to or whatever is narrowed down to the groups in certain disciplines, whether it's military analytics, economics, which I'm well versed on, anyway, political science, geopolitics. I narrowed it down to people I know, and from historically looking forward, have always been right. 99% of the time. 98.5. Okay? And I started realizing that, like the phrase from The Princess Bride, when they kept saying, inconceivable. And finally, the not-so-bright Spanish guy was listening to the really genius Italian guy saying it's inconceivable, and it was obviously wrong. He said, that word, I don't think it means what you think it means. And that's what happened to me. That's Zoe, my studio dog. And I learned from that to realize that we live in an illusion. Financial, military, geopolitical. We've allowed ourselves to be overrun by people whose interests are their own first, and sometimes ours third or fourth. And you've got to realize that, we tout and herald our free elections here and how we run our democracy, which really is a republic, but has less and less freedom every day. Nobody wants to talk about less and less freedom and those things that no one's going to fix. In fact, Judge Napolitano, who I just forementioned here, believes that whether Trump or Harris get elected, many amendments are going to be at risk. They want to eliminate a few of these amendments of our amendments to the Constitution to give more authority to the police state to rough you up if you're a suspect, to be able to detain you, which both Joe Biden and Donald Trump, to my disappointment, allowed to continue to happen by signing the Homeland Security Act that came in, remember, after 9/11, and the late National Defense Authorization Act. These two acts pretty much takes your freedoms away. You just don't know it. They can detain you forever. You don't get a lawyer. If they want to call you a terrorist because you said something on YouTube, you're gone. They can take you anytime they want. There's no freedom there. They can surveil you anytime they want. They don't need to get warrants. Snowden told us that. Remember Snowden? He worked for the NSA and then came out and said, hey, listen, they're spying on you in every second of the day. He had to flee the country. They tried to kill him. I think it was Jeffrey Snowden. Yeah, that's what happens. And they've done it to many other whistleblowers. Whistleblowing is we should be proud of it, but they don't allow it. They come after you. They'll come after you because they don't want you to tell the truth. How about Julian Assange? Do you know who he is? Worked for WikiLeaks, ran WikiLeaks. It was a clearinghouse for information on the wrongs governments did against people and other entities. And he released documents that showed how brutal we were, not only in Vietnam, but in Afghanistan, in Iraq. He chased him down. He went from embassy to embassy. They wouldn't even honor his citizenship, and they put him in jail. And his health deteriorated to a point where he was almost dead. And yeah, Donald Trump was going to pardon him, which he should have done. And he was talked out of it. When he said that was your word. You should have, because he was a hero in my mind. So was Snowden, and there's the others. It's you people out there want to think everything's okay, that someone's going to fix it. Kamala Harris is going to come in and make it the way you think it should be, or Donald Trump's going to make America great again. America first. Let me give you a tip about America first. Americans never been second. But we give money to everybody. Yeah. Big deal. We've been doing it for 50, 60, 70 years. That money is not earmarked for you. That money is earmarked usually to buy off countries or leaders or push an agenda somewhere. That's why that money's used. We want to somehow think that, there's honesty here, that we were somehow put on the back burner. We consume more of everything than any country in the world, including pornography. You proud of that, America? Including child sex trafficking. How about that, America? Super Bowl Sunday, all you watch that crap Super Bowl game, that crap NFL, the crap system they have that doesn't have the values you say you have. That's one of the biggest, basically, child trafficking days in the country. Wherever that Super Bowl is, children are brought into those hotel rooms where these useless men go with their $5,000 tickets and have sex with children. Yeah, that's what's going on. Wake you up a little bit. America the Great, the prodigy, the shining light on a hill. We consume more of everything than everybody else, and we produce the least. And yet we look down at every other nation. They're not free. Their elections are by the point of a gun. No. You'd be surprised how many elections go pretty smooth in countries. But we promote this from the United States to make it, we're the great. See? So you can go to the polls today and have a vote. There was a gentleman in New York, and I can't find what his name was. He was a ward boss in one of the big precincts in New York. And he said something similar than Lord Rothschild said. He goes, I don't care who you vote for, as long as I get to choose the candidates. Oh. No matter which you think, the gates open and close for people to go to wherever they need to go. And those gates are closed and opened by people you'll never know or never see that make more money in 5 seconds than you and your whole family will make in a lifetime. And they look down on us and laugh at Americans, how stupid we are. How we think actually that these things make a difference anymore. They get involved in those critical issues you all want to talk about. Taxes, abortion, prayer in schools, and border, all these things that to them are meaningless because they control everything anyway. They have a plan for our country. We've talked about the Great Reset. We know what that is. We know the plan. And they laugh. They're fighting over this, a divided country. Oh my God. This country is more divided. I'm trying to look here. Anyway, they're going through some of the results here. It's still pretty close in a lot of these races, except for the obvious ones that Trump and Kamala Harris were already earmarked to win. At any rate, the reality is that they laugh at us because we really believe this stuff. All these issues we worry about. Meanwhile, they're stealing from us. They're going to destroy this nation. They're going to bring it down. Yeah, it's not going to be burning. Maybe cities will be worse off. Country people will be worse off, maybe. We'll all be poorer. AI will take more and more jobs. Meanwhile, we'll be at parity with all the other poor nations. And that elite group will be able to reign over it, control who uses resources. See, we're going to give that control because we're not going to have any reason not to. We're not going to have any power to stop them. We'll have a president, but the president will report to those elites, just like pretty much happens now. The bankers, they'll be part of the elite group, the hedge fund people, all the Wall Street people, pharmaceutical companies. The tech industry will be right at the top. They'll know when you burp, when you itch your butt. They'll know everything about you. And they'll make, analysis of you as well. And those AI computers are going to judge you and say, listen, Bill over there, he's pretty right-wing, or he's too far right-wing than we want him to be. Bring him in. Frame him for something. You're done. That's what you're headed for. It's dystopian, isn't it? We got to start somewhere, David. This is the election to start. Okay. You think so. I disagree. Let's just say we agree to disagree. Because I haven't seen any improvement in anything yet. Housing market destroyed. Except for realtors. They think everything's great all the time. It doesn't matter if millions of people can't buy a house. There's always somebody with money that can. That's all they care about. Yeah, cars. I got a 2008 Jeep. It's paid off. 2008. The other car, my wife's, is 2008. I can't go out and buy another car because they're so expensive. Interest rates are high on used cars, even on new cars, and in fact, just overpriced. I don't want a payment. These payments are crazy. $600-700 a month. House payments, car payments. Prices went up on insurance, utilities. The dollar is struggling. The dollar is collapsing. Its buying power is shrinking. And as these people on CNN, CNBC get so excited and Fox about this election, their guy's going to win, their girl's going to win, it's going to be a new day in America. And I guarantee they don't know what I know. And now you know more than they know because they're script readers. They sit in front of a teleprompter. Or their little meeting before the show. This is where we're going. And you're already crazy right-wing or left-wing people anyway, so we already got you in the corral we want. You're going to do just fine here. Just stay on point. Read those scripts. Let's see where we're at here. Okay, it looks like a long way to go. Like I said, I'm not going to stay on all night. I wanted to talk. Maybe I talked too much. Maybe I went off the reservation, off the rails. Maybe I dived into too many rabbit holes. Maybe I just got tired. Listen, as a Christian, I say this, that my faith isn't in these people. In fact, I have no faith in them. My faith is in the big picture of what God is doing in lives of people. Okay, that's the key. See, the nations will rise and fall, but his word stays forever. As Christians, we're to worry about our brother. Spread the good news. They don't accept it, you dust it. Basically, you dust the dirt off your shoes and you move on. The hatred and the attacks that we do with each other and the crazy talk that we we get involved with, the things we will do for what we think is our faith is more and more brutal every day. Rudy Giuliani, the disgraced mayor of New York, went on record as saying at the rally in New York that Palestinian children of 2 years old are terrorists because they are killed or trained to kill people, Americans, at 2 years old. Now, there's no Americans really in the Middle East, so they'd have to come here and, maybe they're here already. Maybe the 2-year-olds are older, but let's be honest, that's crazy talk. That's hate speech. And people don't like hearing that word either. That's a made-up word. No, when you hate somebody, that's a hate speech. Hating Palestinian children. Innocence. And again, I say this, if you're a Christian and you condone that, I know it won't happen, but because I have my own issues. But I'd love to see the replay of God's expression, of Jesus' expression as you explain why you thought that was okay. And that's with a lot of things. Read the first 4 Gospels. You'll learn about Jesus. And believe me, it's totally different than what a lot of people are believing. What they want to kind of pull into their lives. Hatred and war and extermination and vengeance. Well, vengeance isn't yours. You have no right to exterminate anybody. And your job as Christians is simple. Preach the gospel. Every man, woman, and child. There's no hate speech. There's no government speech. And I've said this, and I'll say it again before I leave tonight, right now. To the chagrin of many people that talk to me, or still talk to me, Jesus wasn't really too active in politics back in the day. He was too busy healing and preaching the gospel. He didn't have hatred in his heart, except for the Pharisees and Sadducees. Maybe he hated them. He condemned them. But everybody else, and that's where we have to reconsider as Christians. Either whether you're a Christian nationalist, an evangelical, a fundamentalist, or just an off-the-shelf Christian who believes in Jesus, which is really the only thing that counts anyway. Okay? There isn't any denomination in heaven. But I digress. So this hatred and this worry and this attack and this suspicion of everything that goes on, I'm a conspiracy theorist, and I understand what you're saying. But sometimes you have to balance everything out. Sometimes you have to pull back on the rhetoric, the hate speech, the anger. Just go and do your life. All this other stuff will pass away. It'll change in the twinkling of an eye. Politics change, politicians change. Stand up for something, you'll fall for anything. What we're falling for is hatred, anger, revenge, murder, and killing. That's what we're standing up for too often today. I was that guy. I'm done with being that guy. God truly opened my eyes to reality. And it hurts other people because they can't comprehend it. They're stuck in the political paradigm and of politics. And yeah, Renee, you're right. Life changes. You have to love and not judge. Yeah. I mean, someone who has pain, that's the only thing that we can do is continue to love and to not, I think someone said, with every finger you point, there's 3 pointing back at you. Listen, uh, right now, I'm going to see what's the last count here. See, Trump's pretty far ahead in electoral college votes right now, 160 to 30. So, like I said, this is either a landslide coming or it gets tighter as it goes. And of course, a lot of these states that Trump has taken were predicted. Okay, but listen, we'll find out hopefully tomorrow. I'm going to sign off here. I'm glad those of you watching watched. Hey, go back if you're new to this channel and you haven't decided to go on the live stream here and to chat with me. Go to the Tomsic analysis. You can email me, David_truthmatters@yahoo.com. That's again, David_truthmatters. That's an S at yahoo.com. Please comment, join, like, subscribe, share. We are always happy to have new people joining us as part of our family. God bless you. Remember, Jesus is still Lord. No matter what happens here tonight, you get up and you move on and you continue with life. So this is David Tomsic signing out from the 2024 Tomsic Analysis live stream. No live stream Thursday. There will be some videos out, I think, this week. And we're going to maybe tackle the Ukraine war problem. So stay tuned for that. Outside of that, hey, see you next time right here on the Tomsic Analysis. I'm sure glad, I am really glad that this election is over. It's terrible, terrible. How do you get out of here?